We are studying in the book of Job, and we are down to chapter 18. There are no kids in here, so I'll tell you a story. Jeremy started his invitation tonight talking about the guy who knows everything. Reminded me of when I was preaching in the Houston area. There was a congregation nearby, and it was getting close to Christmas. And as part of his invitation, the preacher was. Am I not on? I'm on. Part of his invitation, the preacher was talking about mythical people, and he was talking about, in comparison to the real Christ, that Christ is real. Superman's not real. Spider-Man's not real. We all know that Santa Claus is not real. And I understand for about 15 minutes they were putting kids back together in that audience. It created quite a pandemonium. To his defense, he was a young guy, didn't have any kids yet, and so made that mistake of youth. Chapter 18 is Bildad, the second of the three friends of Job, answering what Job has said in chapter 16 and 17. Job has given another one of his really scornful rebukes to these men. He calls them miserable comforters. They're saying nothing to him that is helpful to him. Everything that they are saying is adding to his afflictions. And then he expresses his complaints, what he is going through. He wants these men to understand the significance and the depth of the things that he is going through. And then in chapter 17, he expresses concern really for his reputation. That is what chapter 17 is mostly about. His fear seems to be that he'll come to the end of his life, and here are these men, and they seem to be reflecting what everybody else is thinking, and that is that Job has done some horrible thing, some secret sin that he has committed that's so horrible that God has come down on him in the way that he has, destroyed his family, taken all of his things away from him, and destroyed his health. And he is concerned that he'll go to the grave with that reputation after building a reputation all of his life for godliness, that he will come to the end of his life, and what people will think when they think of Job is the fact that he did something horrible, that God destroyed him. And I think it's basically that idea, that concept that Bildad grabs hold of in chapter 18. This is Bildad. It's the second round for him of answering Job's questions about his situation. And in verses 1 through 4, Bildad expresses the fact that he takes personal umbrage to the things that Job is saying, that Job has expressed words that are full of misunderstanding, to the extent that Bildad basically says that you're the one who has no understanding. You're the one who has no wisdom. Job has, in nearly every one of his speeches, has talked about the fact that his friends do not understand what he is going through. They do not understand why these things have happened to him, even though they have expressed over and again the fact that they do believe that they understand perfectly why he is going through such tribulation. And so what Bildad wants to know beginning is, how long are you going to keep this up? How long till you put an end to words, gain understanding, and afterward we will speak? What Bildad says to him is, if you'll wise up a little bit, then maybe we can have a conversation that is profitable to both of us. Bildad sees him and his friends as speaking all of this wisdom, and at the end of Job, God's going to talk about those who darken counsel without knowledge, and that is true of Job in his conversation with God. But Bildad kind of first on the spot with that and saying, I think that's what you're guilty of. We can't have an intelligent conversation with you because you're just not understanding. You don't have the wisdom that you need to engage in a really intelligent conversation with us. Now he has told them that Job has told the friends that they are like beasts in their inability to comprehend. And Bildad wants to know why that is. Why have you counted us as beasts and regarded as stupid in your sight? You who tear yourself in anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you, or shall the rock be removed from its place? I think what he's saying there in verse 4 is, you expect the world to change for you? They express to him over and over again that what he is experiencing is the way that the world works. Good people have good things happen. Bad people have bad things happen. That's just the way of the world. And I think what Bildad is asking him is, should that change for you? Should what applies to everybody else not apply to you? And so in verses 5 and 6, he talks about what really everybody knows, and that is that the wicked man's house will not be established. His light will go out. The light of the wicked indeed goes out. The flame of his fire does not shine. The light is dark in his tent, and his lamp beside him is put out. What he says there is that, let me get to it, that the home of the wicked is a dark and dank and cold place. It goes rough on the wicked and on the families of the wicked. And so what Job is going through here, the explanation of that is that what's happening to him happens to all the wicked. He says in verses 7 through 10 that the wicked really is caught in his own traps. The wicked is deceitful, and the result of his deceit is he falls into his own deceit. He becomes deceived himself. The steps of his strength are shortened, and his own counsel casts him down, for he is cast into a net by his own feet. He walks into a snare. The net takes him by the heel. The snare lays hold of him. A noose is hidden for him on the ground, and a trap for him on the road. Terrors frighten him on every side and drive him to his feet. And so his point is that what Job is receiving here, kind of basically the idea of karma. You've done your bad things, and you're getting caught in the bad things that you have done. And so he talks about the terror there in verse 11 that comes he says, on every side to the wicked man. He cannot escape the terrors that come because of sin. Verse 12, his strength is starved and destruction is ready at his side. It devours patches of his skin. The firstborn of death devours his limb. He is uprooted from the shelter of his tent. They parade him before the king of terrors. They dwell in his tent who are none of his. Brimstone is scattered on his dwelling. His roots are dried out before, and the branch withers above. The memory of him perishes from the earth. He has no name among the renowned. He is driven from light into darkness and chased out of the world. He has neither son nor posterity among the people, nor any remaining in his dwellings. Those in the west are astonished at his day. Those who are in the east frightened. And so he says here that this terror comes to the man who is wicked. His health is destroyed, and he turns into skin and bones. His body dies an agonizing death. Just one part of his body at a time. You've known people who are like that they could not die. And so one part of that person would basically quit functioning, and another would quit functioning, and finally that person would die when enough things quit functioning. And what Bildad is saying here is that's wickedness being punished in the way that they die. It says the property of the wicked is taken by either the enemies that come against him or by calamity, by brimstone that comes down. His children die. I think the image that Bildad is presenting here, what image he wants Job to see, is an image of Job. And it seems like all of these things that these men say are calculated to say, they don't want to say, Job, you did this. Job, this is what's happening to you, and because you are wicked. They make it more general than that. This is what happens to the wicked, and Job is supposed to understand from that that all these things that they are saying that have happened to him, that is because he is wicked. And then verses 17 through 20, the memory of the wicked perishes. And I think that is a direct answer to Job in chapter 17, where Job is saying, I'm afraid that the memory of me is going to be destroyed. That when I am gone, since there hasn't been this cry from the earth, or this cry from heaven that vindicates me, that says I did not do these things. Therefore, when he figures he's going to die, this is going to kill him, the thing that he is going through. And when he is dead, people will say, well, he suffered for his wickedness. That's Job's fear. Bildad's answer is, you don't have to worry about that, because you don't have any kids left, you don't have any land left, you're about to die. Nobody is going to remember you at all. I can appreciate that. Probably all of us can appreciate maybe something that has happened, and you think, man, I wonder what people are thinking. And I expressed that to a friend of mine one time, that I was worried about what people were thinking about something that happened in my life. And he said to me, you know what? I really don't think people are thinking anything. I don't think they're thinking about you. And I think he was probably right. And that's certainly what Bildad is saying to Job here. When you're gone, you don't have to worry about leaving a bad memory in people's minds. there'll be no memory of you whatsoever. And so there's a little bit of good news in that, but there's a whole lot of bad news in it as well. This reputation for good that he has spent all of these years building up, that's going to be gone as well. And what he says in verse 21, surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. His point is, this doesn't happen to the wicked by accident. It's not like that they were practicing deceit and then all of a sudden, kind of in an accidental way, deceit comes upon them. They're setting a trap for somebody else, and just happenstance is that they fall into the same trap. He says, no, it doesn't happen by accident. It happens because God declares that is what is going to happen. And so Bildad is expressing the same thing that they have been expressing throughout this discussion, and that is God makes sure that the wicked do not prosper. Always has been the case and is the case now. Any comments on chapter 18? Pretty standard stuff from what we have seen in recent studies. Chapter 19, Job's answer to Bildad. How long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me. And if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. You break me in pieces with your words. What will never hurt us? What does hurt us?
Allegedly, words will never hurt us.
Yeah. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's wrong. Some of the deepest pain a person can feel is not the getting hit by a stick or a stone, but by a word unwisely, cruelly spoken. And probably all of us have felt the pain of words. It would be nice if things just rolled off our backs and we never felt any emotion at all when somebody says something that is cruel or unfair to us. But that's not the way the world works. He says 10 times you have reproached me. I didn't go back and count all the times that they reproached him. I suspect, though, that he is speaking figuratively here. The fullness of their reproach of him. I doubt if he, when first time Eliphaz reproached him, he goes, okay, that's one. And then Bildad, okay, that's two. I think he's saying here the way that they would have said it. Countless times, a multitude of times, you have reproached me. And he says the thing about it is you're not even ashamed about that. You have added all of this trouble to my life, and you're not even ashamed of the fact that you have done that. He says in verses 5 and 6, if indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net. What he's saying there in verses 5 and 6 is that if Job's friends are correct, then what they are saying to Job is that God has wronged him. Think about that argument. That's a terrific argument that Job makes. What they are saying is God never brings anything bad upon the righteous. Everything bad happens to the unrighteous. And Job is pleading his righteousness, and they have not presented a good argument against that. And so Job is saying here, if what you're saying is correct, that God always rewards the righteous and always punishes the wicked, then what you're saying is God has wronged me because I'm being punished and I haven't done anything that is wrong. It says in verse 7, if I cry out concerning wrong, I am not heard. If I cry aloud, there is no justice. From verse 7 to verse 20, all the ways that God has made him suffer, he has made him suffer wrongfully. If what they are saying is true. And so they are accusing God of wrongful conduct. He has fenced up my way so that I cannot pass. And so he goes through this list of things in chapter 19 about what God has done to him. Verse 9, strip me of my glory. Verse 10, breaks me down on every side. He's uprooted my hope. He's kindled his wrath against me. He counts me as one of his enemies. His troops come together and build their road against me. They encamp all around my tent. God has gone to war against me. He's done that with me. He has done it with my family. He has removed my brothers far from me, and my acquaintances are completely estranged from me. And so one of the consequences of what God has done is his family has basically disowned him. He's not one of them any longer. And that happens, doesn't it? When somebody goes through some kind of a trial and the thought is that they deserve what they got, they practice this wickedness. It's not unusual at all for a family to disown that person. He said that has happened to me. And my relatives have failed, and my close friends have forgotten me. His friends have left him. Those who dwell in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I'm an alien in their sight. Verse 16, I call my servant, but he gives no answer. I beg him with my mouth. His servants are just ignoring him. The ones maybe that are alive, most of his servants, it appears, died. But the ones that didn't die, they want nothing to do with him. And they are totally ignoring him when he cries out to them. Verse 17, my breath is offensive to my wife. I am repulsive to the children of my own body. He says, my immediate family is repulsed by me. Even young children despise me. I arise and they speak against me. All my close friends abhor me, and those whom I love have turned against me. The young children see him and they run off screaming because they are horrified by the sight of him. And his friends do really the same thing. Verse 20, the health issues, my bones cling to my skin and to my flesh. I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. You ever wonder where that phrase came from? Escaping by the skin of your teeth? That's Job that came from. You are quoting Job when you use that. Verses 21 and 22, through 28 rather, the pitiful plea. I'm sorry, verse 21 and 22, the pitiful plea that he makes. Have pity on me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has struck me. Why do you persecute me as God does and are not satisfied with my flesh? I think he's saying here, have you not seen that I am suffering? And don't you think that I have suffered enough that you could just give me a little bit of sympathy, just show a little pity for me? As we said before, what Job has not asked his friends to do is explain his situation, because he knows, he's already made the point that that's beyond any of their scopes to do. So he doesn't expect them to give him a theological answer to why he is going through what he is going. What he wants them to do is just show him a little bit of common courtesy, pity for the things that he is going through. And while they're at it, maybe believe him a little bit when he says, I don't know. why it is that God has brought this upon me. Rather than accusing him of being a liar and a hypocrite, maybe just show him a little pity and think of the idea that maybe he really doesn't know what it is that has happened. Verses 23 through 29 are some of the richest verses in all of the book of Job, where he places his confidence in God even in the midst of his suffering. I think we pointed out before, there are a number of people who express faith in God in the most difficult of times. You have Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace. You have Daniel in the lion's den. You have Jesus on the cross. You have the Apostle Paul and others who, in times of great difficulty, that is times when they are quotable in the things that they say in response to their suffering and the faith that they are going to continue to have in God. And that's really verses 23 through 29. Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that they were engraved on a rock with an iron pen and lead forever. Oh, that somebody would write my words down. Did you get that wish? Was that wish accomplished? We've been reading it here for quite a while, haven't we? And I think that wish got fulfilled in a way that Job could never dream that it would ever be fulfilled. I'm sure what he is asking here is for somebody just to jot down some of his comments so that in the days to come, when people ask them, did he say anything in his defense before he died? They could say, yeah, well, I jotted some of the things down. I'm sure Job never had an inkling that probably 3,700 years later, we would be reading his story and the words that he spoke in defense of himself and in defense of God. And then he adds in verse 25, for I know that my Redeemer lives. When you sing that song, you ever wonder who said that? I know that my Redeemer lives. Job is the author of that statement. I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God. Job believed in a bodily resurrection? Sure looks like it here, doesn't it? He's not just saying he's going to see God one of these days. He's saying that he's going to be raised from the dead. And at that time, he will see God and he will be redeemed. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. How my heart yearns within me. He says, I am yearning for that day when my body is raised from the dead and I see my Redeemer. What a wonderful statement that is in the midst of all of this suffering. Whatever Job has to say about what God has done to him, he is not going to accuse God of not loving him, not caring for him, and casting him aside for no reason whatsoever. Yes, sir.
If we contrast this back to what Job's wife, had said early on, is just curse God and be done with it and die. This optimism that Job has here is, he's not blaming God at all for his situation. He wants to see God. That's not, it doesn't seem to me that that's words of bitterness towards God.
It's if anything, it's words of confidence that I know that God has a reason for this. And he's going to say that again later on. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure God has a reason, and that God will reveal that reason to me. And he will show me how he really feels about me and my righteousness in eternity. Okay, verses 28 and 29, 28 through 30, 28 through 29. If you should say, how shall we persecute him, since the root of the matter is found in me? Be afraid of the sword for yourselves, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, and you may know there is a judgment. I think what he's saying to him here is, you better be very careful what you say about me, because God's listening. And if you are saying something that is untrue of me, if you are slandering God's righteous servant, if you are accusing him of things that he has not done, look out. Because God defends the righteous. And God will come to my defense. And it just could very well be that the next sword that God draws is a sword that God draws against you. So certainly a true warning for these men, a wise warning for them. If you are speaking ill of me and it is not true, you stand to suffer the punishment of God.
We all need to learn that.
Yeah, be very careful what you say about others. You know, a number of times in my life I have seen men who maybe needed some criticism, but who have just been slandered. I've seen preachers just slandered by other preachers. And man, they need to be careful what they say about one another. Elders slandering other elders, better be very careful. And in fact, isn't that what Paul tells Timothy when he tells him about, only accuse an elder if you've got witnesses. I think what Paul's point is there, you better be very careful who you are accusing of something and what you are accusing them of, because it could very well be that the heavy hand of God will come down upon you for what you have said that is untrue of somebody else. Yes, sir.
And in this particular case, if we jump forward to the 42nd chapter, after God has gone through the discourse about his power and all of that, he says, my wrath is aroused against you. You and your two friends, he said, you did not do right with this. Job is spot on with what he is predicting here.
Absolutely. And this is not the first time he has said this. He said before, you may find yourself in trouble when all of this is over. And sure enough, they did there in chapter 42, to the extent that God said, I want you to get some animals and I want you to take them to Job, and Job is going to offer a sacrifice for you. And with the understanding, if Job was not willing to do that, these guys are in a heap of trouble. They owed God some sacrifices for the slander against his righteous servant. Anybody else on chapter 19? Okay, Zophar. This is in chapter 20, his second speech, and he is the friend who only speaks twice. The other two are going to speak 3 times. Zophar only speaks twice. Verses 2 through 3. Again, there's the feeling that you have personally dishonored me in the things that you have said. Therefore, my anxious thoughts make me answer because of the turmoil within me. I have heard the rebuke that reproaches me, and the spirit of my understanding causes me to answer. Job, I'm sorry, but I got to answer this. You have slandered me. They've been slandering Job throughout this book. And now he's just irritated because he feels like that Job has said something about him that is dishonorable. So I can't let that go. I've got to say something about that. Well, what he winds up saying is the same thing that he has said and his friends have said, and that is that God condemns the wicked, which is something that everybody knows. You know, it goes hard for the wicked. In verses 4 through 11, we know how, all of us are older men who are engaged in this conversation. We know how things have gone for a long, long time, really since man was placed on the earth. Verse 5, that the triumphing of the wicked is short. The joy of the hypocrite is but for a moment. Though his haughtiness mounts up to the heavens and his head reaches to the clouds. What typically happens, Zophar says, is that a person is blessed by God and then they get the big head. They get haughty. And they say things in their haughtiness. And guess what? God takes all their things away from them then. Though his haughtiness mounts to the heavens, his head reaches to the cloud, yet he shall perish forever like his own refuse. Those who have seen him will say, where is he? He will fly away like a dream and not be found. Yes, he will be chased away like a vision in the night. The eye that saw him will see him no more, nor will his place behold him anymore. He's going to, it's echo of what is said before. He's going to disappear, and it's going to be a total disappearance. People for a while will wonder, where in the world Job went? And then the memory of him will be totally gone. His children will seek the favor of the poor. Now that's quite a statement, isn't it? Not only will his children be begging, his children will be begging from poor people. That's about as low as you can get there. He'll be begging from people who make their living by begging. And as little as they have, they'll have more than the wicked man's children. And his hands will restore his wealth. His bones are full of his youthful vigor. I think that's talking about his life previous to his wickedness. That he's wealthy, he's youthful, he's healthy. But here's the end of it. But it will lie down with him in the dust. He may keep his wealth for a little while, but his wealth will be taken away. He may keep his health, but eventually he'll lie down in the dust. Euphemism for he will die. There's an interesting kind of a poetic thing in verses 12 through 16 about the evil. Though evil is sweet in his mouth and he hides it under his tongue, though he spares it and does not forsake it, but still keeps it in his mouth. The image of someone who eats something and it's so sweet and tastes so good that he doesn't gulp it down all at once. He just kind of lets it. You ever, some really good ice cream, you let it just kind of hang around in the mouth, and oh man, you can get 10 seconds of pleasure out of a single spoon. That's what he's describing. That's what the evil man does with his wickedness. He tastes of it. He holds it in his mouth because it tastes so good. And then verse 14, yet his food and his stomach turned sour. that tasted so good while he was doing it, he says, turns into something that is sour to him. It becomes cobra venom within him. It's like poison, like the poison of a cobra, even though it tasted so good. It's the Moses forsaking the pleasure of sin for a season. Yes, sin is pleasurable, but it's only pleasurable for a season. And that's the point that Zophar is making to Job here. It may seem fun when you were doing it, but now what you're getting is the cobra venom that was in it. It's turned sour, hasn't it, Job? He swallows down riches and vomits them up again. God casts them out of his belly. Again, it's God doing it. It tastes so good going down, but God makes him throw it up. He will suck the poison of cobras. The viper's tongue will slay him. In verses 17 through 19, Zophar gets specific. Job has said, all of these generalities that Job, the reason you're going through this is you're a sinner. You've done something very wicked. What Job has asked them for is if you know something that I've done, tell me, and tell me specifically. Well, Job asked for it, and so here he gets it. Verse 17, he will not see the streams, the rivers flowing with honey and cream. He will restore that for which he labored and will not swallow it down. From the proceeds of business, he will get no enjoyment. And then listen to verses 19 and 20. For he has oppressed and forsaken the poor. He has violently seized a house which he did not build. Okay, Job, you want to know what you did? You oppressed and forsook the poor. Here's this guy with all this wealth, and he walks by a poor beggar, and he just leaves him behind. Not only does he just walk right by him, but he also, I lost my place here. He walks right by him, and he just ignores him. And maybe even kind of kicked him when he was down. He said, you want to know what you've done? Okay, let's talk about it. You've oppressed the poor. And here's somebody out here that you have power over, and they've got a home that you want. And so you have seized their home. Now, in what circumstance Zophar may be talking about here, he may have known a situation where someone owed Job, and they agreed to pay what they owed to Job with some kind of monetary possessions or something. Either that or Zophar is just throwing it against the wall to see if it sticks. You did this, you did that, and eventually, if he lists enough things, then Job will go, yeah, you're right. There was that time when I walked by the poor man, and he reached out his hand to me, and I just turned away from him. He's looking for something. And so Job wants some specifics, and Zophar gives them to him. Verses 20 through 23, Zophar piles it on. Because he knows no quietness in his heart, he will not save anything he desires. Nothing is left for him to eat, therefore his well-being will not last. In his self-sufficiency, he will be in distress. Every hand of misery will come against him. When he is about to fill his stomach, God will cast on him the fury of his wrath and will rain it on him while he is eating. I think what he's saying there, he's kind of comparing Job, Luke 15. is the story of the prodigal son. Remember what the prodigal son did when he got all of his inheritance? He goes into a foreign land and he wastes it all. That's what the word prodigal means, wasteful. He's just wasted everything. I think that's kind of another accusation that Zophar is bringing against Job, wastefulness. You've just, you've spent all that God has given to you on your wickedness, and now tough times have come and you've got nothing because you have just squandered all of the blessings that God would cast upon you. Verse 24 through 29, he will flee from the iron weapon. A bronze bow will pierce him through. It is drawn and comes out of the body. God's wrath attacks like a weapon of war against Job. Yes, the glittering point comes out of his gall. Terrors come upon him. Total darkness is reserved for his treasures. An unfanned fire will consume him. It shall go ill with him who is left in his tent. The heavens will reveal his iniquity, and the earth will rise up against him. This, I think, verse 27, is a direct answer to something that Job had said before. Job said, I just wish that there would this cry from the grave would come up and speak the truth. Or I wish heaven would speak down and let the truth be known. And here's Zophar's answer to that. Earth and heaven, they'll talk. You want them to talk? They'll talk plenty. And they'll tell all the wicked things that you have done. The increase of his house will depart, and his goods will flow away in the day of his wrath. This is the portion from God for a wicked man, the heritage appointed to him by God. All of these things, these bad things that he describes here, he says, come upon the wicked, which means they come upon you, Job, by God's appointment. In chapter 21, Job is going to turn this whole thing on its head. He's going to take them in a whole new direction. Because the direction they've gone is God does nothing but bless the righteous. He does nothing but curse the wicked. And Job is going to say in chapter 21, that may not be true. We need to think about the fact that the wicked may suffer, or the wicked may be blessed, and the righteous just may suffer. Yes, sir, David.
One of the things that it seems as though they don't see is that they don't leave any room for mercy or grace. Because even the wicked have the opportunity to turn back to God if they can. It's almost as though they, in their own mind, have already made a decision, and they push grace, mercy completely out of the picture.
Well, I think it's still in the grace and mercy are still in the picture for them, just not for Job, as long as he stubbornly refuses to admit his guilt. And they're going to, Eliphaz is going to tell him in chapter 22, man, if you'll just fess up, this thing be over with. God will shower you with blessings that you won't even believe how many blessings he'll shower upon you. But before God can do that, you have to change. You have to admit your guilt. You have to pray to God for forgiveness. And he'll be plenty willing to help you. So God's out there. He's just not out there for Job as long as Job stubbornly refuses to admit his sin. And they have to hold to that because of the very foundational principle that the righteous never suffer and the wicked never have good things. Okay, we'll start at chapter 21 in our study next week. Thanks for being here for your comments. Bow with me. We'll go to God in prayer and be dismissed. Gracious Father, we're so thankful for the day, for all the blessings of life you've so bountifully given to us, for watching over us, for caring for us in all the ways that you have. Father, we understand our sinfulness, but we also understand your mercy that you gave your Son to die on that cross of Calvary for us so that we, through his shed blood, might have the forgiveness of our sins and the hope of eternal life. Father, help us to, when we find ourselves falling short of that which you have established in your word for us, that you'll help us to have the humility that we need to recognize that and to confess those sins with the confidence that you forgive. Help us, like Job, to look forward to that day to come when our bodies are raised from the dead and we meet our Lord in the air and we go to be with him forever. Let that thought never escape our minds. Bless us and keep us. Bless those who need our blessings in special ways. Care for them. Watch over them. Help us to be safe until we come together again on the Lord's Day is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen.